Sure, Mark. Do you want us, everybody else other than the one presenting at this point, to kind of pause their cameras?
Sure. Let's do that.
I think I know how to do that.
It says I got it turned on. Now you want me to turn it off?
Yeah,
God.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, let's open us in a word of prayer. Gracious God, we give you thanks on this night for your presence in our midst. Your word promises us wherever two or three are gathered together in your name, you are there. And so, Father, we welcome you and ask God that you would bless and guide the conversations that we share tonight across the miles. And Lord, that your hand would be upon the technology for each of us, varying levels of anxiety about using it. And Lord, I just ask that you would oversee and guide the use of that technology so that the information can be conveyed clearly. May it be, Father, a time of learning, but may it also be a time of rejoicing as we share fellowship together as well. Bless these times, Lord, for we do offer it to you in Jesus' name. Amen. As Mark said, we're really grateful that you're all able to be with us tonight. For each of you, as you start out in new ministry, some of you not even getting started yet. I mean, Jeff Riker's not even beginning at Elizabeth until January. But for those of you with your varying lengths of time and your places of service, starting in ministry is like drinking from a fire hose, right? Because you're trying to learn a brand new community. You're trying to find out where the grocery stores are. You're trying to find out who are these people that are in the pews that are looking to you to be the leader and to be the one to guide them into the future. And then on top of that, oh yeah, by the way, you have to figure out your association and what this region thing is about. And that, quite frankly, is what we're hoping to help you with tonight, to give you a little bit of an overview of who we are regionally. Tonight, just the main full-time staff members, and then subsequently on December 10th at the same time, 7 to 9, we'll look at our regional associates as well as our auxiliary organizations that are a part of the region. But tonight you're going to get an opportunity to get, hopefully, to know each of us a little bit as staff members. But as at the outset here, we want to give an opportunity for each of you to be able to tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, your family, your current church? Do you have an ABC background? A little bit of information. And if you have a webcam, we'll ask you to turn it on and the folks will be able to see you. But just to say, because I'm talking to a bunch of preachers, right? We're not looking for War and Peace tonight. We're looking for Blondie and Dagwood, right? So just a chance to get to know you just briefly as we launch out, and a chance for you to get to know some others as well. So, Mark, I don't know how you want to do this, if we're doing alphabetically or what you're thinking.
Why don't you just call out some names, brother, and they can introduce themselves, turn on their webcam and unmute if you're muted, and we'll go.
Okay. Got Mike there. Mike, if you want to go ahead and jump in first, that'd be awesome.
Hi, I'm Mike Bowser. I'm currently serving at the Wauk Chalk Salem Baptist Church in Katanning, PA. Along with my wife, I still have 2 boys at home and another son with a couple of granddaughters, and his wife who just lived about half an hour from us.
Wonderful. ABC background?
No. I stepped in just as an interim when their pastor retired, and for some strange reason they asked me to stick around.
We all ask that question on a repeated basis. They still want me back. I don't get it. Oh, that's awesome. So glad to have you tonight.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right. How about our brother from Crafton?
Okay, well, I'm from Western Pennsylvania. Grew up in Robinson, which is not far from where I'm at. Same school district. Been in a lot of other places, but I'm back. Let's see. Family. Well, I'm married. She has 1 child from the previous marriage, and he's about 40, so not a lot in the way of family right here. I mean, my family's all in Western Pennsylvania too. And hers is scattered all over the country. But anyway, I'm with First Baptist Church of Crafton. They're a great bunch. Been there for about a year and a half now. I do not have an ABC background. I grew up Presbyterian and attended worship services in just about every kind of church, or just about every kind of Christian church, that is. But I was preaching Presbyterian, and I was between churches, and members of the Crafton Church heard me preach, or not preach, but actually just lead a prayer at a community service, and you know, they bugged me until I came and preached to them. So.
All right. Well, that's wonderful. Now, there's an important question. Given the fact that you were raised in Western Pennsylvania, are you a Steelers fan or a Browns fan?
I'm not a sports fan.
Okay.
But if I were going to follow a team, it would be the Steelers. I used to follow them back in the Terry Bradshaw days.
Yeah, didn't we all? Now, and I'm sure you've already seen on when Mark had his up that he is definitely a Steelers fan, as am I, as is Jeff. So welcome. Glad you're able to be with us tonight.
Well, thank you very much. I also do not have an ABC background. I am currently a hospice chaplain. I've been a hospice chaplain for 9 years. And how I came about this church, we took care of one of the deacons' mother. And my wife was also a nurse / chaplain as well. And we became friends, and they invited me several times when the pastor was either on vacation or I've been there like 7 times this past year preaching, and they just I just fell in love with the congregation. I really did. I grew up in a Methodist church, so that and then I was in the non-denominational church, and I'll tell you, as I told them, the one thing I love about this church that Elizabeth Baptist Church, and I'm sure you all do this. I just love the structure of how things are done. It's not done like that in the non-denominationals, and I don't recall it when I was younger back in the. But I'm a former PGA member. I tried to get on tour back in the '80s. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. I too was at every game in the '70s when Bradshaw was out there. So I remember. I haven't even stepped foot in Heinz Field yet, so it's been it's been there a while. But I'm excited. The people are great. I love what I'm doing now because I'm getting to know them as we're going to go through the transition through the holidays. So it's a good thing. And what I do for just briefly, what I do for as a chaplain, they call me the enthusiologist.
Saw that.
And what I do, and what I do is I go into personal care homes, over 300 a year, and I do a very uplifting spiritual program with some fun and just smiles and just show people how good God is and God's love, and just pointing them toward their faith, and giving them hope other than what they're going through in personal care facilities, because they need that. So that's what I do now. And I'll be taking over Elizabeth Baptist Church part-time, and as we grow, we'll probably definitely transition over to full-time. But I'm excited about the opportunity.
Excellent.
Praise God.
Thanks, Jeff. Glad you're with us. Let's see. Debbie Marker.
Yes, Deb Marker. I am currently at the Hughesville Baptist Church. This is my first church. I've been in the ABC for nearly 30 years. I'm from the state of Indiana. Sports-wise, I used to be a Colts fan, big Peyton Manning fan. But generally speaking, I'm not much into sports. Pretty much camping, cooking, being outdoors, that type of thing.
Nice.
So, and I just started at Hughesville. I was their interim for 7 months, and then I just took over as full-time pastor October 1st.
and they're excited to have you as well.
Amen.
I'm excited to be there. They're a terrific bunch of people.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Mike Wilbur.
There we go. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yes.
It didn't seem to be working, but I think it's working now. Very, very important part to get right out there is I am a diehard Patriots fan. So, Steelers fan got it wrong. I'm born and raised in Maine. Been there for 40 years of my life and just moved out here August of last year. I've been with ABC all of my life. I'm a third generation pastor. My dad pastors or just retired from an ABC church. My grandfather started out in a congregational church, went to an ABC church, and then in an independent church. So third generation pastor. And yeah, I got a wife and a daughter who is 12. And that's, oh, and I'm from Punxsutawney. And yeah, I live within viewing distance of the groundhog. So
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And you can watch the movie with Bill Murray, and I, if memory serves me correct, see the church on occasion in that movie. So
filmed in Punxsutawney. So
yep.
If they have the church, they did get some screenshots before they did the movie. So.
Well, it's great to have you with us, Mike. Albeit being a Patriots fan, that's okay. I went to seminary in New England, so I understand. I do get it. But it's good to have you with us. Mark, that's the list that I'm seeing on my screen. Are there folks that are on that I'm not seeing?
Yep, we still have Pastor Scott Cunningham.
That's right, Scott's on.
And I believe Gary Eaches is on with his iPhone. So Pastor Scott, you want to go?
Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Cunningham, and I'm at Franklin Park Baptist Church, which is located in the Wexford, North Allegheny community, about 18 miles north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'm a lifelong member of that church. I grew up hearing my parents talk about the association, meaning the Pittsburgh Baptist Association, and grew up hearing them talk about the convention, meaning the American Baptist Convention. So being American Baptist has always been part of my identity and part of my life, as it's where I learned everything from Sunday school to BYF to having the privilege now of standing in the pulpit of my home church and being allowed to lead and to preach. So I'm in a very privileged position in that I'm among family and in a broad sense. There's a lot of forgiveness when I make my mistakes, but it's a great embrace. And so those who had a chance to be at Franklin Park, you know what I'm talking about. And it's just a delight to have that opportunity to return a little bit to this wonderful congregation after they've given me so much. So thanks.
Amen. Thanks,
Awesome.
Scott. Glad you're here. All right. And Gary on his iPhone or iPad.
Gary, can you chime in? I'm not sure if you have audio capability. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Or maybe I caught a little bit. Was that you? And if Pastor Gary can't join us, I see him on the list. Pastor Gary is at the United Baptist Church of Scranton. Been serving there just a little over a year. And you can cut me off, brother, if you get your audio working. Pastor Gary has been comes out of the Gettysburg area where he has family, and I think he's actually vacationing and was joining us while on vacation with his family members in Gettysburg. So I'm grateful that he's made an effort. He warned me, he said, I don't know if I'm going to make it, Mark, because I'm on vacation and I got other stuff happening, but I'm grateful if he's able to be with us. And again, he's served for about a year, some really exciting stuff. Scranton can be a challenging community, and he's been doing a really good job at the United Baptist Church of Scranton.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So that's
And
my best Gary Eaches imitation, by the way.
I was just going to say, that's a scary thing to say. Well, I'll just let Mark talk about me. Well, it really is great to have all of you with us tonight, and to have the privilege of getting to talk with you a little bit about this regional family called American Baptist Churches of Pennsylvania and Delaware. And before we get down to that like 500-foot level and talk about the ministries of the region, and you get an opportunity to meet some of the staff, wanted to do kind of a 30,000-foot view of these different regions that make up American Baptist Churches USA. They're very, very different in their structure and in their organization. And so wanted to walk through that with you very, very briefly. First off, there are three different kinds or types of regions that are found in ABC USA. There are regions that cover multiple states, such as Mission Northwest, which you see outlined there in the pink, or ABCOPAD, that is both Pennsylvania and Delaware. I chose Mission Northwest simply because we had their executive pastor, the person that serves in the same kind of role that I do here, Charles Revis, was our keynote speaker at our last biennial leadership conference last October. And every time I start to feel bad about how big ABCOPAD is, I take a look at Charles' region, and you see the number of miles that he and his one associate put on their cars to travel. They actually fly to get to some parts of the region and then rent a car to travel around. But there are some regions that cover multiple states, like ABCOPAD and Mission Northwest. There are also those regions that make up the 34 regions in our ABC USA family that are a single state, like ABC of Michigan or ABC of Ohio. But then there's also regions that serve single metropolitan areas. The Cleveland Baptist Association stands alone as a separate region in our denominational family. The Philadelphia Baptist Association stands alone as a separate region. And it was the case until about 16 years or so ago now, that the Pittsburgh Baptist Association was its own standalone region and was not a part of ABCOPAD. But about 15 or 16 years ago now, the region had some conversations with us and ABCOPAD, and asked if we might be willing to merge with them. And we got the blessing of the congregations of the Pittsburgh Baptist Association, but we also got Denise, and we ain't giving her back. So that was a part of the deal, and we went, yeah, we're good with that. To get Denise to be a part of our region. But that gives you a little bit of a picture of the different types of regions. ABCOPAD is one of the larger ones in terms of the number of congregations that are a part of our region, and we'll show a graphic of that in a moment. But we're also one of the larger mission supporting regions in the country, usually always coming in the different mission lines that are part of our mission remittance form is either in the top 5 or 6, and sometimes even as high as 3. So ABCOPAD makes up one of the largest regions in the country. Some of the smallest being like Rhode Island, that I think has 47 churches. ABCOPAD is up just under 300. So there are all different types of regions. It's not apples and oranges, but there are differences. Differences in the way that we're structured, differences for certain in terms of the style of each region. And that's where we're going to kind of park our focus tonight, is for you to get a little sense of what is the style and the culture of our regional family here in ABCOPAD. And as a region, we provide an important link between local congregations and our national ABC USA family. And that's a blessing at times, but to be quite honest, sometimes that's a real challenge, because we get pinched between local congregations and our wider ABC family, and trying to help both sides understand one another. And I'll just leave it at that. There may be some others of my colleagues that are going to want to say more about that, but there are days when that can be challenging. But that's an important part of our role of ministry together. So that's the big 30,000 foot view. What we'd like to be able to do, though, is talk with you about who we are as a region in ABCOPAD. And I want to start with an illustration, and you're going to say this can't be the same guy, but it is. That's me. A number of years ago, my oldest daughter, who's the brunette there directly beneath me, is now 32 years old, and Rebecca, the light brown haired one, is going to be 30 here in just a couple of weeks, going on 48. But when I was interviewed to be asked to become a part of the regional staff, I was meeting with the search committee. And in the process of that was back when I was 38 years old, so 25 years ago, I would carry around a copy of the most recent photograph of my family when I would go to visit shut-ins. That was just, it was great because they always asked, as I'm sure you've experienced, they want to know about your family and they want to get to see the latest picture. So I would carry this picture around. Well, I had my Bible with me as I went into the interview with the regional search committee for a staff position at the time. And as they were asking me questions about ministry and about kind of who I am, I remembered that I had the picture in my Bible, and I pulled it out and I passed it around the group, and I said to them, you really don't know and understand who I am if you don't know my family, because they complete me. And they're vitally important to who I am. If you don't know them, you don't know me. And in similar ways, that's really very true about who we are as a regional family. A key definer of who we are, a key way that we unpack ministry in this region is based upon the vision that God has given to us, and that we use as our marching orders. And it isn't even an elevator speech. I mean, it's very brief, it's very succinct, but it is laden with all sorts of direction and guidance for us as staff and as regional churches as we serve together. And here's the vision. Our vision is to build healthy partnerships with churches, with pastoral leaders, and with our wider ABC family to fulfill Christ's mission in the world. Now, I don't know whether that is at all familiar to any of you, or I hope you've seen it, and I hope you've heard some of it, if not all of it. And the key component out of that is the theme of partnership. And it's threefold: with churches, with pastoral leaders, and with our wider American Baptist family. And you're going to see and hear tonight some of the ways that we unpack that vision. And honestly, we went through a fairly significant restructuring process a number of years ago, saying, if this is the vision that God has given to us, and we believe with all of our heart that it is, then the way that we're structured for ministry needs to reflect that vision. Otherwise, it's just like, and you've experienced it, you've seen it happen, perhaps in churches where you've served, or when you grew up, that they had a mission statement and they worked hard on it, but honestly, it was on a wall maybe, or it was in a file folder and it got put in a filing cabinet and never really saw the light of day and really didn't impact how ministry was done. That can't be said about our regional family here in ABCOPAD. So this vision really does direct and guide what we do together in ministry. And what I often will say is the value of a vision is twofold. It informs you certainly what you're called to do, but it also informs you what you're called not to do. And the honest reality is, over the years, as we've sought to implement this vision in some significant ways, we've got churches mad at us and we've got pastors mad at us, because we're called to do what God has called us to do, and that is this vision. And so that means that there are going to be some things that folks are going to say, well, we want you to do this. And that's a part of my job, is to be able to go, no, that isn't what our vision is. We're going to do what God calls us to do. And so there are times that we're going to disappoint. There are times that we're not going to fulfill what you think we should do. And it's not because we don't care, but it's because we honestly are really seeking after the vision and plan that God has laid upon our hearts. And again, the region is fairly substantial. It involves 21 associations with 200 and at this point 94 congregations. You see those different associations outlined there, and involves, and we've chatted about this as staff, involves a variety of cultures. As I've thought about it over the years, I can think of 7 different cultures that exist across our regional family. And it's a challenge for us to navigate that road in our life together. But honestly, the people that we have serving as a part of our region staff are awesome folks and just do a great job at that. Being a Baptist is high math. It just is. Because of the nature of what it means to be a Baptist congregation. We have local churches that are autonomous congregations that are self-governing, and yet as Baptists, we unite together in mission and ministry. Those are a couple of those dynamics or foundational truths about being Baptist: local church autonomy, as well as the associational principle. There are a number of other Baptist distinctives as well, but in terms of the life that we seek to work together for as a region, those two are held in tension, and we value and prize them. Our role is not authoritarian in nature, like maybe in some denominational groups. The running joke is when I go into a room or one of the other staff members go into the room, they go, "Oh, the brass is here." And to which I immediately reply, "No, we're Baptists. I'm just tin." Because the reality is every local church is autonomous. And we choose, though, to associate together for mission. And that is really at the heart of who we are as a regional family. And the truth is that the key to successful leadership today is influence. It's not authority. And so the ministries that we seek to provide, the ways that we seek to come alongside of local congregations and pastoral leaders and even our wider ABC family, is through the influence that we have and the opportunities that are afforded to us. There are congregations where they look at us and they go, "We're fine. We don't really need your help, and we don't really want your help." And as being Baptists, we certainly can't force our way in. But we believe that God has given us a vision, and we really do want to come alongside and work with congregations and pastoral leaders to be able to see the kingdom move forward. And so we do that through hopefully the influence that we can build in our life together as we build relationships with churches and with the folks around our regional family. That's kind of, a big overview of our vision, but you will begin to hear as each one of our staff members talks about how that vision is lived out in the ministries that they're called to. Hopefully you're going to hear that vision reverberate through the conversation that we have together tonight. And this is our core staff that you see on the screen in front of us. And each one of them is going to have an opportunity this evening to get to talk with you about the ministries that they provide. So, Carol, I believe that you are first on that list.
Why is that?
Well, probably because you are, and it's not It's just truth. Carol is the senior staff person
Yes.
in
Yes.
ABCOPAD. And you predate me by what, about, oh gosh, 7 or 8 years, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think so. She started when she was 6.
And I did. It's
Just
true.
so you know. Just so you know. So are you set to go, Carol? I'll stop sharing and let you pick up.
Flip it to me. I think I am.
Okay.
Okay. I do the green share. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Wait a second.
Yep. There we go.
I can see your script. Perfect, Carol. Awesome.
Mark was so nice. He let me torment him with this afternoon. I don't know. This afternoon my camera worked, but oh well. Okay. What I wanted to say before I got started was that if there's anything that I mention or throw up on the screen that doesn't make sense or that you have a question about, I hope you'll stop me and ask me, because that works well for me. It could be pretty boring if I just go through things. So if there's something that you don't understand or means something to you, yell it out. It's funny, Frank didn't see my presentation and I didn't see his, but apparently we think along the same lines. I thought I'd tell you who I am. I'm a wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, sister, and aunt. I'm the oldest of 5 children and the only girl. There are over 50 members of our immediate family, and I've spent my entire life as a member of Baptist churches, and my parents met at a Baptist church. This is a picture of some of my nieces, nephews, grandchildren, great-nieces, great-nephews, and great-grandchildren. We have lots of kids in our family, and it's constantly growing. I have a niece in the hospital right now getting ready to deliver, and we're all excited to know our newest baby. 2 of my brothers are pastors, one with the American Baptist and one with the Southern Baptist. We like to think we have all the Baptists covered that way. I'm down in the southeast section that you saw on Frank's map, an Eagles fan, but that doesn't bother me, you know, getting along with fans of others. I live with a Giants fan. We manage that. And if you're wondering what any of those things that I just told you all about have to do with the ministry of being the treasurer, I think they have everything to do with it. In February, I will have spent 34 years working for ABCOPAD. I believe that ABCOPAD is a family of churches. In my view, everything in life is better and more fun when you're surrounded by family. In a family, you appreciate each person's individual gifts, and the family is strengthened by the sharing of those gifts. Being part of a large family is very much like being part of the American Baptist family. We have different likes, dislikes, different temperaments, and most definitely different opinions. Mm-hmm. At the end of any day, though, we're a family who want what is best for each other. We're always available to help each other, and with only a phone call or text, we can be ready to do whatever is needed. And I know that's true here in ABCOPAD. When there's been disasters and things, Mark will have a text, and usually before the end of the day, we have a code for missions. We have churches calling, what can we do? How can we be there? And so I see it exactly in the same way as I see my family. At the heart of our caring for each other is our faith in God and the legacy of loyalty and caring that we were given by our parents. I believe the ABCOPAD churches support each other in these exact same ways. I like this verse, and it said, so speak encouraging words to one another. Build up hope so you'll all be together in this. No one left out, no one left behind. It's always my hope that each of the pastors and their congregations feel connected to the other American Baptist congregations in this region. I believe that a huge portion of the work that the region does is to lift up what's happening in the local churches and use that information to encourage other pastors and congregations in their ministries. There is really no need to reinvent the wheel, and each church can adds its own touch to ministry ideas from another church. You may be wondering how the treasurer of ABCOPAD can be helpful to a church pastor or a congregation. I thought I'd list just a few of the things that I hear when I talk to pastors or I talk to treasurers or mission treasurers. They'll call and they say, you know, we have a mission board that oversees the mission giving from our congregation, but most of the members are new to our congregation and they have questions about our support. Pastors will call me and say, our treasurer wants to retire from this position, but we have no one who's willing to take over these duties. I often get calls saying what accounting software is available for churches that won't require a lot of work to set up and will be easy to train our volunteers to use. One of the other things is one of the pastors in my association told me about a grant his or her church received from ABCOPAD. How do we find out about receiving a grant? Church treasurers often feel very alone in their churches. They are the bearer of bad news when they share with the congregation that there's a gap between income and expenses, and especially if that gap's a negative one. They're expected to know everything about sending in the mission giving from the church, and it seems like every year there's something new from the IRS or more healthcare rules. Sometimes they've spent years writing their entries into ledger books, and now they're being pushed to use a computer, or maybe they want to use an accounting system, but the church has no funds set aside to buy a computer or the software needed. I'm a friendly ear to hear those struggles, and I have resource material and contacts when additional information is needed. Many of the churches consider their pastor to be the on-point person. I know well how full the plate of a pastor can be. Move to a new area and you've added another dimension of needs as you and your family find new doctors, new stores, a new bank, and a new home. Jump in midstream to everything that is going on in your new church, and now you're supposed to know how your church can receive a grant from ABCOPAD for the summer VBS program you want to start. I love to talk with treasurers and mission board members about who and what they are supporting and where those funds go. I'm happy to be supportive of a new person learning the treasurer duties in any way that I can be. I use church accounting software and I like to share that information with pastors and treasurers. And I'm really excited to give you the information of how your congregation could be a recipient of a grant through one of the 3 funds that ABCOPAD administers. And I may even ask you to serve on the grant committee at some time. In what way do local church finances intersect or relate to the finances of ABCOPAD and regional ministries? I hear sometimes, I'm told, we have a small congregation and we struggle to meet our own budget needs each year, so there's very little we can do to help with regional ministry. Then I'll hear, I'm new to ABCOPAD and I don't know how regional staff can be supportive of the financial needs in my congregation. And other times it's, I don't have an American Baptist background and I don't see the value or interest in supporting specific ministries or missionaries. When I was new to the American Baptist family, I was discussing rather strenuously with our World Mission Support Director at the time, not understanding why churches only received credit or recognition for the giving they did to American Baptist missions, when there were so many outside important ministries in my view. He patiently explained to me that there will always be people to support those ministries, but who will support the American Baptist missionaries and ministries if the American Baptist churches don't do it? The church's support is critical to reaching new people and strengthening ongoing ministry. Through the years, I've come to know how important and necessary the giving from our congregations is, and the amazing things that have been accomplished through their generosity and dedication. We know and understand the realities your congregation may be dealing with. We are aware that families are juggling outside activities with their commitments to their church, and that people's work schedules or travel times may make regular attendance more difficult each year. Gone are the days when everyone knew and believed that they should tithe to the church. Heating bills and snow removal aren't glamorous things to hold up in front of a congregation, but they're necessities if we're going to meet and worship together. I usually make treasurers laugh when they tell me about these kinds of bills and they say, people don't want to hear that. And I say, well, I understand that, but not many people plan to go to Disney World when they can't pay their electric bill. So there's necessary things that we take care of because we're a part of a congregation. Years ago, regional ministry as well as national and international ministries were supported most meaningfully by the larger congregations in Pennsylvania and Delaware. That is no longer our reality. It is the faithful support of many, many smaller congregations within Pennsylvania and Delaware that currently allow this region to be in the top 10 and often the top 5 giving region in the ABC. And I thought I'd just real briefly touch on how the role of the church treasurer has changed. These are some of the things that I hear also. Do I give my pastor a W-2 or a 1099? What is a health savings account? Would a flexible spending account be beneficial to our pastor? If we reimburse our pastor for the cost of his or her health insurance, is that taxable income? Our new pastor has his or her own home and doesn't want to use our parsonage. What does that do to the tax status of the parsonage? How do we set up a housing allowance? What documentation do I need for expense reimbursement? What records do I keep and for how long? Do we need a policy for digital documentation retention? Why do we need a copy of our 501c3 letter, and where do we get a copy? How do we apply for or renew our Pennsylvania tax exempt status? To be clear, I don't have the answer to every question that comes my way. Each year I subscribe to many of the materials from Church Law and Tax. One of the best resources they produce is the Church and Clergy Tax Guide by Richard Hammer. Within the context of their reprinting permissions, I'm able to share many of the topics included with treasurers and pastors as they contact me. MMDB, which is Ministers and Missionaries Benefit Board, uses many of Richard Hammer's material for their resources as well. He is both an attorney and a CPA. Many of our congregations would not be able to financially afford the services of an attorney, CPA, or purchase material of this caliber, and we're able to share these resources. Regularly, I remind treasurers to be sure they know where the church's copy of the 501c3 letter is. And if they cannot locate it or aren't sure if they are in fact on the blanket listing of American Baptist Home Mission Society, to check with me, and I can verify if the church is already on the list or direct them how to apply or how to get who to contact if they need a duplicate copy. Pennsylvania began a program about 15 years ago of bundling churches together by their denomination for the renewal of their Pennsylvania tax exempt certificates. Last month, I completed a 12-page report for the state as the parent organization for all of the ABC churches in Pennsylvania, and it was accepted. I am compiling a list of our churches, addresses, and EIN numbers right now so that the tax office can mail out the new certificates prior to March 1st, 2020. I'm finishing up with this. You can all be glad. What's ahead for the financial future of our churches in ABCOPAD? None of us know God's exact plan for your church or this region. What we do know is that as we study and gather information for a changing church landscape, we face that future together. We have been willing to use new technology to reach people across both states of our region, as well as other American Baptists across the United States, to seek new ways to engage and inform our pastors and lay people. We partner with the American Baptist Foundation to provide local congregations with programs to strengthen their financial future, as well as to provide opportunities to support regional ministries that have been meaningful to them through the years. Our ministry exists to support your ministry, and we seek to do that with the most current resources available and by building relationships within the American Baptist family. Pastors' days and nights are filled with responsibilities with their families, congregations, and communities. Trying to stay current with strategies to grow the church, train leaders, and find time for reading or studying can be daunting. You'd like to be able to offer your congregation the benefit of being able to give online or from their phones. Maybe you're interested in having a presence on Facebook or Twitter, and your website might not have been updated in over a year. You know the church should be thinking about building a reserve for some major repairs that they're facing in the next 5 to 10 years. Our partners in the American Baptist Foundation have a person who would love to come out and work with your church and explain some of the ways you can make this happen. You'll hear more tonight about our online programs through ACTS and the online training opportunities for you and your lay people. You don't need to find the answers to all of these issues by yourself. We've already done most of these things, and yes, even worked out many of the kinks so that you don't have to start out fresh, finding every pitfall on your own. You're part of the you're part of the ABCOPAD family, and your family wants to walk this road with you. I'm done.
Good job, Carol.
Thanks.
Thank you. As you can tell, Carol knows a lot of stuff.
Amen. Amen.
No, it's back to you. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I got it, Carol. Yeah, absolutely. Carol is one of the most unusual treasurers I've ever met, in that she sees this to be about kingdom work. And it is about extending God's kingdom. And she really does want to be as helpful and supportive of you and your ministries as she can, both in terms of interfacing with your treasurers, as well as answering some of those nitty-gritty questions that you don't think about until you find yourself painted in a corner. And she can be just a wonderful, wonderful aid to you. So I know she would also love just to get to know you a little bit. Very personable individual, as you've seen. And always fun hearing Carol's stories about her family. Always fun. So, thanks, Carol. All right. And Denise doesn't have a video camcorder to put on, but she does have a microphone, don't you, Denise?
I do have my microphone.
Okay, this is Denise Bez Licky, and I'll let her introduce herself and talk about some of the many ways that she supports us in ministry here in ABCOPAD.
My name is Denise Vasilich. I serve in the Pittsburgh office. I've been on the ABCOPAD staff for a little over 14 years. And before that, as Frank said, I work for the Pittsburgh Baptist Association. I am the administrative support person. My job is to provide support to the region staff, the churches, the leaders, the auxiliary organizations. I try to do whatever I can to be helpful to them. Some of the things that I'm responsible for are tracking the leadership and church data, event registrations, promotion and publications. I build some of the constant contact messages that you get. And I'm also lucky enough to get to work on some of the mission teams. I coordinate the logistics for those teams. So if God is calling you to a mission field, we'll be glad to help you get there. We can do as little or as much as you need. For some teams, we take care of everything. We create the budget, book the tickets, work with the mission field partner, and all they have to do is go. For other teams, all they need is a little bit of help with promotion. Either way, we'll do what we can to get you there. In ABCOPAD, every day is different. I may never know what I'll be working on, but I know it will always be interesting. I believe we are all called to serve God. Serving on this staff is how I do. I'm grateful to be a part of this team.
one of the best parts of working for ABCOPAD is the people. My life has been richly blessed because of them. So if there is any way that I can be helpful to you, please don't hesitate to contact me, because I would be glad to do whatever you need. Thank you.
Wow, Denise, you said a mouthful, and she meant every word of it, friends. she really did. And she has been an amazing assist to us in terms of logistics, as she described, and handling the publications and office communications for us. Denise, you are a gift from God, and we're grateful for you. Thanks.
Amen. Amen.
You bet.
Mm-hmm.
You bet. And you'll hear about Denise, I'm sure, as we go through, as Mark and Jeff may share as well. I get the opportunity to talk a little bit about the ministry that I share as the regional executive here at ABCOPAD. And I've been serving with the region now for 25 years. That being said, my heart has always been in the local church, and I've said about our staff and about others that are involved in regional ministry and middle judicatory is the fancy phrase for that, but also denominational work, that if you don't continue to have a heart for the local congregation and recognize that ministry and the kingdom gets advanced through the local church, you really don't have anything to offer. And that has always been my heart, and I think it reflects the heart of who we are as a region, a very firm recognition that ministry and mission and the advance of the kingdom takes place in local congregations. And that's what we really seek to do, is to partner with you to make that happen. The call for me to mission and ministry regionally came while I was in seminary. I was a student at Gordon Conwell back in the late 70s as a first-year student in a mission class, and the professor was talking about Trans-World Radio. And he described the fact that Trans-World Radio had on their staff pastors to missionaries. And I just got very excited as I would have been 22-year-old at that time, listening to this very different type of mission field and mission work, and got very excited about the thought of, well, who is it that comes alongside and cares for the pastors, cares for the missionaries that are providing that mission work? And I can remember talking with some of my fellow students after the class was over and saying how exciting that sounded to me. And they all thought that was a big yawn. They said, if we're going to go be missionaries, we want to be the ones interfacing with the different people groups. We don't want to be ones behind the scenes being supportive of those missionaries. But I think God really planted a seed in my heart that day, even before I pastored my first local congregation, of the just critical importance that it is to be able to come alongside of pastors and come alongside of congregations and be supportive of the ministry that they're providing. And that really is the culture of who we are as a regional family, and is certainly my heart in it. And a key part of my role is the keeper of that vision, and trying to encourage and support that work as we move forward in ministry. Another important part of the ministry that I provide is seeking to help to equip for ministry, whether that would be congregations or whether that would be pastoral leaders. And this is a picture that was taken a few years ago at an event called Catalyst that takes place in Lancaster. And I think at that particular event, Andy Stanley was one of the key speakers. Craig Groeschel was also there talking about leadership principles. And as a region, we had invited 20 local church pastors from around the region to come and be our guests for that event, paying the registration. And here we were sharing lunch together, midpoint. And that's an important part of my ministry as well. I get the joy of going and celebrating with our pastors as they're in welcomed into congregations. As you see in the upper left-hand corner, that's Pastor Corey Fields from the Calvary Baptist Church in Newark, Delaware. Was a part of his installation service. And in the bottom right, this was an ordination service for Pastor Luminitza Nichols, who's now the senior pastor at the First Baptist Church of Lancaster. And I was a part of her ordination service. Always joys in ministry to be a part of those celebrations. But I also love to serve as well. And mission and ministry has been an important part of my life together. I started actually in region ministry, doing world mission support. So I have a real passion for mission work. And this is from down with Superstorm Sandy in New Jersey a few years ago. Some of the work we've done. Mark and I have been on a number of mission trips together, and it's kind of a running joke. He and I fight for using the sledgehammer. But that's a part of my heart, and it's a part of my passion. And so it's thrilling to get to serve on mission fields with our churches and leaders. Another key part of the ministry that I share is to provide a bridge to our partnership with ABC USA. I get to do that with one of our pastors, Reverend Kelly Legg, is our ABCOPAD representative to the Board of General Ministries, ABC USA. Kelly is the senior pastor at the West Shore Baptist Church in Camp Hill. And every region has a person that is a part of a small group called the Board of General Ministries, about 38 or 40 individuals in number. That is the main governing body for our ABC USA family. So I get to work with some of those national leaders on your behalf to be able to help them understand some of the nature of ministry and mission in ABCOPAD, so that in turn, hopefully that influences the decisions that they make. And Kelly works as an important part of that process as well. One of the greatest gifts and joys I have is the opportunity to work with an amazing staff and to fulfill their calls of ministry, just like we're about partnership with pastors and with congregations. I'm about partnership as I seek to work with our region staff. Each one of them are called, each one of them are gifted for ministry and mission. And if there are ways that I can be supportive of that mission, I want to do that. I don't want to get in the way. I don't want to meddle. I want to be supportive of them. And I count that as a great joy in mission and ministry as a part of this regional family. Okay, Jeffrey, I think you are up, my friend.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
Yep.
But as you're getting ready to launch, maybe we can pause for just a minute. We've covered a lot of territory, and maybe if you all had questions, I mean, we can hold our questions to the end, but if you had questions for Carol or Denise or Frank, maybe you want to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, very good, very good.
We could take a break for just a minute. Been on just a little over an hour. So, friends, have you, in listening to all this great material, do you have any questions you want to ask?
A question about mission giving, please.
Sure.
I used to think that we got our biggest bang for our buck by just putting money into United Mission, and then United Mission made sure everything got to the right place. But it doesn't go everywhere, does it? For example, if we give United Mission, we don't support the region. Is that correct?
Carol, do you want to take that? Mark, you want to take
Carol?
that?
It's an awesome question, by the way. Please don't misunderstand. That is such a good question. We can ask that question all the time.
And
so,
all of us are dying to answer it. So that's
Carol should start.
Okay. No, we do receive support out of that. And years ago, that made up about 80% of the support. Well, actually, I'd say more, about 85%. When I first started with ABCOPAD, about 85% of our total income came from United Mission. And through the years, as that has gone down, when they redid the budget covenant in 2004, they allowed regions to have their own offering, which ours is the Partners in Ministry. We presently receive 65% of United Missions, which there's actually 2 computations that come off of that, which lowered a little bit from that, but basically 65% of that comes to us. But more and more churches have said, you know, we'd like to know where our support is going and how it's supporting. So a number of churches have shifted either some or all of their giving to Partners in Ministry, and they may still support other missionaries and things like that, but they want to make sure that they're supporting regional ministries, and we keep 100% of Partners in Ministry. So right now, we actually, our total income from missions is, we actually receive a little bit more in Partners in Ministry than we do from United Mission Basics. So Mark, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, and I would just say that's such a great question. And yeah, it still does get divided up and goes to different places. So it is still a viable way to do that. So part of it stays in the region, part of it goes to the Office of the General Secretary, American Baptist Home Mission Society, International Ministries. But having said that, brother, the fact is everybody's also doing kind of their own solicitation. And it's becoming a really challenging place for churches to better understand how to be supportive, because we all have these offerings to specific areas. But United Mission is still a way a lot of our people choose to give, and it certainly makes sense for a lot of folks. Frank?
No, I think you and Carol have said it well. And again, the landscape has become more complicated because each of those mission organizations have their own pointed ways that churches and individuals can support them in mission and ministry, and the water just gets a little cloudy at times. But it's still, United Mission does still go to the support of all of our family in varying degrees.
Great question. Other questions that I can make Carol answer? That would be perfect.
Hey, Carol. Carol?
Yes.
This is Jeff from Elizabeth Baptist Church.
Yes.
I have a question. You mentioned a gentleman, Richard, is it Hamler?
Hammer. Hammar.
Hammar. Okay.
But there's, it comes out of Christianity Today. It's all part of the same organization, but the church, clergy tax and law, it's really good materials.
Okay, is that available through you all, or is that?
They have their own website, which I'd be happy to send you.
Okay, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, do we have your email, or do you give that out?
Yep, we have it.
Okay, perfect. I'll grab it and I'll shoot you the information for it. And we have all kinds of materials for, you know, just really every type of ministry that the church does. So
that's wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You can stump Carol, but it's hard. Because she has a wealth of information when it comes to finance. So hey, our Baptist churches come up with creative financing ideas so it is possible to like have her jaw drop and like, what? That's new. But she has a lot of experience, so you can definitely find her to be a valuable resource.
Well, and just to add there too, another resource that Carol referenced in her comments, when it comes to pastoral compensation packages and advocating for pastoral compensation, the Ministers and Missionaries Benefit Board also has some great publications to help treasurers understand clergy compensation, because it's confusing. Even for those of us that are one, right? So mmbb.org is the website for the Ministers and Missionaries Benefit Board, and they have some great resources there as well.
Right. And, downloadable ones.
Yeah.
Other questions? Because we're getting ready to unleash Jeff, and I just want to make sure before the drum roll.
Oh heavens! Is I unmuted?
Buckle up.
All right,
I'm going to be very calm and stoic.
Sure you will.
Well, good evening. Oh, let me turn that on. Sorry, Is that working now? Wait a second. Mark, where would my camera be now?
In the lower corner, can you see start video?
Yeah, wait 1 second. I can't because, wait a second. I made it now.
Now you will be.
Yeah. Let's see. Wait a second. Sorry, everyone. Oh, there it is now. Oh, it was up above. It moved up above.
Gotcha.
Okay. There we go. Now we're operational. Okay. I am the regional pastor with congregations, meaning that in my role and responsibility, I saddle up alongside you as a pastoral leader and the laity within your church to move all of us together forward to have the greatest impact for God in your context. Continuing as when your church first started, all of you many years ago, still being relevant to where God placed you and making a difference. But that's not where all of my life began, and that is not the sum total of my existence. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and though I did not start life as an American Baptist, I would be an American Baptist for all intents and purposes ever since I became aware of my surroundings. But that was not where I began. But I was raised south of Pittsburgh in Westmoreland County, was saved in an American Baptist church as a child. But for me, my real commitment to be a fully committed follower of Jesus Christ, or as what I define to be a disciple, was made in my teens. I have always had a desire to be a preacher. As far back as I can remember, that was true. Our church was one that fostered callings in people, and over a number of decades saw individuals go into pastoral ministry as well as into missionary work, and I was one of those. I think my earliest calling came, though, probably not so high or lofty a calling, because I really wanted to be a fully surrendered servant of God, but I'd rather talk for an hour than sit in a hard pew and listen. But that's where it all began, at least for me. And so I preached my first sermon at the age of 14. I did such a wonderful job that the diaconate board of the church, immediately upon my conclusion of an hour-long message, encouraged me to start finding preaching opportunities in other places because they wanted to share me with other people. And so began an itinerant preaching ministry actually around the age of 16, doing camps and retreats and some conferences. I have been in professional ministry for 34 years. Next year, I will begin the first of the year, my 35th. I've been married to my wife, Karen, for 30 years. Actually, it was at her church that I held, which is an American Baptist church, one of our 294 congregations in the 10 Mile Association in southwestern Pennsylvania. It was at her church that I held my first official formal revival. And so, of course, in that role and responsibility as an evangelist, invited people, if they wanted to meet Christ, to step out of the pew and come down to the front. And as a bachelor, invited that lady in the second pew, 3 seats over, if she'd like to go on a date with the evangelist, to step out of the pew and come forward. And so that's where we officially met. And then we're later married and have been married. Just a week ago, celebrated our 30th anniversary. And we have 2 children. I'll bring up another picture. This is a tiny bit older, and I'll explain why that is. But we have 2 children, John A., and she just recently graduated from university and is now working in a lab at a local area hospital, doing a lot of work in surgical and cancer treatment labs, and continuing on in her studies to become a physician's assistant. Our son Judson Adoniram, which for American Baptist in particular is an awesome name, because he would be the first ever missionary of any denomination sent to a foreign field in the early 1800s. His name was my son's name, flipped, Adoniram Judson, but we were afraid of him getting beat up in school if he had to walk around with the first name Adoniram. So my wife was willing to go with Judson, which would allow the perpetuation of my initials in him, as well as my daughter shares those same initials too. But he is a senior in high school and is deciding where God wants him to go and what God wants him to do. He has a lot of options open to him, and sometimes when you have a lot of options, it makes the selection process more difficult. And so he's discerning that. Our son is really big into basketball, partly because he's 6'3", so that big literally is the case, and he is also big into rock climbing, free-facing rock climbing, which scares the heebie-jeebies out of his mother, and I can't bring myself to even go watch him when he does some of it in the great outdoors. But this is our family. We actually, the dog you see there, sadly, is no longer with us, but we have recently gotten another one, a small, totally opposite in color. He's completely black with some white markings, and he is a puppy, so very little. I'm surprised you aren't hearing him in the background. You still might, because he may express his disdain with being in the cage right now while I'm online with you. And so my wife is a director of aging services, senior programs, and so she does a lot of work in the area of senior citizen centers, in-home care, and ministries and work such as that, and is really big into animal rescue. And so we have 4 cats in our house and now this new dog. So that is our family, and that's who I see as, besides Jesus, the most important people in my life. I wanted to, before I get into talking specifically about what I do, I wanted to mention something about what we do. And that is because all of us on staff actually, especially as the regional pastors, do often things that are not responsibility specific or portfolio specific that's just mine, such as providing pulpit supply that we do week to week, and have been in some of your very churches doing that over the last couple of months. And we are more than willing and wanting to provide pulpit supply to you and for you, but we find one of the greatest things is doing pulpit supply with you, by having you present while we're there. It does still give you a Sunday off in the sense that we do provide the message, but it allows your congregation to see that we really are in partnership with one another. And so though we do come when you need to be away, and sometimes that can be at the last moment, the day before, the night before, we have been called upon to come, and we do that. But some of the greatest opportunities, I feel, is when we're there with you. Search processes, and I look at this list and see the congregations that I have worked with in the western part of the state, but also like all the staff in the other parts of the state too, because some of us have certain specialties that assist congregations, such as providing during their search process demographic studies, which is something that I do, about what is the potential that we have to reach people and how does that help define who we need to be looking for, and work with congregations in the area of clergy compensation and what should be reflected in our church profile and in our budget. Credentialing, we do that across the region, and we do that, of course, in our areas and in our associations. Frank showed you a picture of Pastor Lumi being ordained, but there's things that happen behind the scenes that we're all a part of. Teaching ministry, and that is comes about in different ways as well across this region. Tonight's experience is no less than one of them. But we do have a regional school of lay ministry. Pastor Scott is actually a student in that program right now, and he will suffer with me. He has been suffering with me because I needed to take on responsibility for the theology class that he is presently in. And then he'll have me in January for a 2-day intensive on evangelism and outreach. And then he will have me in the springtime when I'm pitch hitting for the professor there for 1 week in the book of Revelation. And so when that New Testament course is unfolding, but that's a wonderful opportunity. Pastor Deb has been a student in that program, and now having come out of that, was affirmed by the congregation for her credentials, and then affirmed by another congregation to call her first as pulpit supply, then as interim, and now as their seated, settled pastor. So that school of ministry can be talked about all evening long. Also, there's all of our presence and support of the leadership learning communities, and you're going to hear more about those, so I'm not going to spend really any time in depth talking about those, but those are our collegiality groups that occur in different parts of Pennsylvania and Delaware, and they really are over all Pennsylvania and Delaware. The group that I personally participate in involved 3 counties, Washington, Greene, and Fayette in southwestern Pennsylvania. And they're just ministers that get together once a month for study, for fellowship, and just for support to share. Presence at special events, and I'll mention that in a moment as well, and participate, all of us, in promotion and publicity. Just check out our webpage, just check out our Facebook page, just check out our monthly newsletter, and you'll see all those things coming into play. I'm going to make my presentation as simple as the ABCs, and that is that in my particular role, as well as the rest of the staffs too, I work with associations, especially in the area of revitalization, even though, as Frank mentioned, we have 21 associations. Not all are as strong as they could be or functioning at their greatest capacity. So we work with them to see what that might look like. I can specifically say that Pastor Mike at Punxsutawney has a real heart for associational life and is working on revitalizing his Laurel Association and looking at partnership with his neighboring association, Clarion. And that is true of the association right down in the very southwest corner of ABCOPAD by the Philadelphia airport. That's the Riverside Association, looking at partnership with the Association of our Delaware churches. One of the things I love to do is to attend church anniversaries. This past year and last year, I did those, 3 of those in 1 year. I often arrive in costume and persona, often of the original pastor, reading some of the church's history that you can get from the book that we'll be providing you following this session, which is the history of our churches in Pennsylvania and Delaware by God's own hand. And that I then do a presentation about what it was like in the founding year of the church. So I have celebrated churches' anniversaries of 125 years, 150 years, 175 years. The church I pastored in Western Pennsylvania in ABCOPAD, south of Washington, PA. Well, I was there when it celebrated its 225th, when its original church members were still British citizens of the crown and went from singing God Save the King, King George, to God Bless Our Country 'Tis of Thee. So amazing to see that transition. And I also have the unique role and responsibility of not only serving our region of ABCOPAD, but for nearly next year will be my 20th year as a team member of our American Baptist Home Mission Society, specifically in the area of evangelism and discipleship. 3 things that I really am focused on and responsible for are working with congregations so that their budgets really do reflect ministry and not maintenance. I mean, businesses down the road, across the street from your church, are paying electric bills like you do. They're paying, other utilities as well, garbage pickup and so forth. But what makes you and your church different is what those budgets of those places don't have, and that's the faith factor. Faith that God's going to provide for the things that he has given us to do, because provision always follows vision, but also faith believing that that budget should be a reflection that we really want to do all that we do here where we're called to serve and support people who are serving in other places to come to a personal and thriving, growing faith in Jesus Christ. I also help churches to look at their buildings and see how they can be more hospitable, more accessible, help them to figure out what is the best use of the space they have for their present context of ministry. And also, as you'll see in a moment, and the point person on our region staff responsible for buildings when congregations no longer can function and have use of them. And so shepherd congregations through the disposition and then also the distribution of their buildings and the assets that they and the proceeds they provide. And I also work with boards and committees. And I've often said, they are called boards for a reason. We just spell the word wrongly. But anyways, I digress. And my point is that we try to not only, because within our Baptist polity is this idea that we really are meant to work together and that God does work through majority and consensus and that boards should function in that capacity. And so try to equip them for those purposes through training and intentional, intense reading. Under the area of the letter C, I am responsible, though we all again participate. I want you to understand that this really is a team effort of all the places that I've been privileged to serve nationally, regionally in ABCOPAD, regionally in the West Virginia Baptist Convention, where I pastored the same church twice in the 90s when I left ABCOPAD originally, moved to Philadelphia to live and was a member of an ABCOPAD church there for 5 years, then was called back to my church in West Virginia. I am on one of the most, if not, and traveling to other regions all the time, on the most functional team I've ever enjoyed being a member of. And so part of that is in what we call the collab experience, collaboration with one another as region staff and congregations, collaboration between congregations, and collaborations, all of us together with God to have our churches at the best possible place they can be, figuring out what it is, discerning and discovering their vision, and then helping them to understand how to do that. And we do that through various means of intense working alongside churches and the leadership God's given them, and using constitutions and bylaws to truly reflect, again, not really protocols and procedures, though that is their primary function, but again, to see them not as law, but rather as grace to have laid out what it is we need to do it the best possible way to accomplish our desired outcomes. But like with people, we come to an end of our life cycle. And congregations can do that collectively, just like people do that individually. And I often remind leadership that there's not one New Testament church that we use for our preaching and teaching ministry that is literally from the first century still open today. And yet no one would deny the validity and value of those churches when their doors were wide open and people were coming in and out being touched by God. But the reality is that like those churches to the first century, that some made it into the second, they closed. And some of our congregations closed. And my responsibility is to shepherd those churches through the pain, but also the process of closure, providing hospice care, if you will, congregational hospice care, to care because oftentimes you're down to just a few, handful or less members, but also then to navigate the legal and the technical and the tangible, meaning the real estate realities of that. In this particular year, I have shepherded no less than 3 of our churches through this process and have had conversations with several others in that regard. And one of the things I do is actually twofold, and you'll have the opportunity to look at this yourself later when we provide you this presentation, or you check it out yourself on video. And that is, on one hand, I provide consultation, and again, all the staff does this, and they can do that through a phone conversation. And Denise herself was way too humble, because she does way more than she shared with you, as all my team members and colleagues do. But that can be through a phone conversation or really showing up and being a physical presence in your congregation and in your life. But there could be intervention as well when the dynamics are very different, and you can see some of the particulars that distinguish one from the other. But my role and responsibility is to be able to provide both. And some of this has to do with what are the vital signs of a church. And if we were to do diagnostics, which is some of the work that I'm responsible for, what does your sheet look like? What areas are you doing well with? What are your strengths? But then what are some of your weaknesses, and what are some of your concerns, and how do we address those in the best possible way? There are two spiritual aspects that I see myself responsible for. One is spiritual initiation, which is near and dear to my heart in evangelism, and that's the work I've been doing nationally for 6 years, and that takes the form of evangelism training, and that takes the form of revival services. Primarily, my evangelism efforts are in regard to the book I wrote 10 years ago, Got Style, which is a personality-based study of evangelism. And what I love about this is that what it says is one size does not fit all. And it says that there's a variety of ways that God has wired us in the church. And what we need to discover is, how did God put me together, and how did God put these other people around me together? And together, what would best serve the means of us cooperating to reach out and really have the greatest impact. The book's in its 3rd edition, and next year I've been funded by National to do a complete and total review and revision of the book to make it as relevant as possible. But it remains in the top 10% of all books of every genre on Amazon.com, and has been used even this past year by a church in our own region to do a 13-week Sunday school study of evangelism using this as their premise. Been used by a former ABCOPAD pastor in an independent church he's now serving in New Jersey, and used across the spectrum of mainline denominations. A huge mega church within the United Methodist Expression of the Christian Faith out in Austin, Texas, has done it with their more than 1,000 congregants. And because we used it in our leadership learning communities, we have study guide availables and teaching format. It's all there for you. And the other one is spiritual formation, because you shouldn't be doing evangelism if you don't have a process in mind to mature people. And I don't know how you can be having a process in mind to mature people if you don't have evangelism in mind to first get them to make that faith commitment. But the work I do is in spiritual formation, is focused a lot on prayer practices. That's a huge emphasis for me personally and professionally. Encourage tithing of prayer, of both board meetings, of congregation meetings, of our own personal prayer times. And there's suggestions we make across the spectrum. Through the vision process, what we hope to do is not only grow your church collectively, but to grow your congregants individually. And practice such things as empty chair prayer, where we had one pastor in ABCOPAD literally make up a sign, put them around the church, had people pray for who would eventually fill those seats, not just expecting people to show up, but going out and calling those people, inviting those people to come, and using that as a means, and saw a 20% increase just through the practice of prayer and its impact on them already inside to go outside and invite others in. And then teaching churches the stop, start, and sustain processes. Lord, what are we doing right now that you really, that you've said has served its purposes, and it's time to say, it's over, it's done. And there's a whole step in the vision process that talks about that. Because unless we clean the plate at least a little, it's hard to ask God to put more on and see it there. But then once we've done that, we say, God, now what is it that you'd like to start? Because the Bible says that God would like to begin a new thing. The actual verse is every day. But in some of our churches, he'd like to do it at least every once in a while. But what is it, God, you'd like to start? And then what is it that we are doing? Because if your church is still open, it means there's something that God has for you in mind. There's a plan. There's a purpose. You aren't just coasting. You aren't there because God's focused on others and has forgotten you. God has something for you to do. And what is that particular thing that makes you unique, makes your church unique, that not only should it be sustained, but it should be enhanced and enlarged. That's all, folks.
Brother Jeff, I just wish you were more excited about what you do.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, boss.
Man.
I'll work on that
Work on that,
emotionalism.
dude.
I'll work on that.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right, Marco.
All right. And before I start, anybody have any questions? Questions for Jeff? He covered a lot of materials, does a lot of things regionally, and is just such a invaluable part of our asset on our team. So questions? I saw Pastor Scott in the chat had mentioned Acts, and I was super appreciative for his affirmation of that ministry. But questions for Jeff?
Jeff, are you still in Western Pennsylvania?
Living there, you mean?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not. I have a commute because when I transitioned from the local church to the region staff, we were still living in Charleston, West Virginia, and had every intention of coming up. And over the summer had secured a home at that time a few years back, but that home fell through at closing. So, and at the same time as when my wife got hired by the state to do the work she does as a deputy director. So I commute out of West Virginia into Pennsylvania to do work both in the West and in the East. We have the Pittsburgh office where Denise is located that we're able to work out of. And I also have an office in the Philadelphia area in our Home Mission Society building.
Okay.
Anyone else? We're going to have some Q&A time when we're done too, but any other questions while you're thinking of it for Jeff?
Pastor Jeff. Dr. Jeff?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I keep muting myself, and then I forget to unmute it.
That's okay. Do you still go out and do God style in churches?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I was just doing that. Actually, this past week, Deb, I was in Western Pennsylvania doing Got Style at Waynesburg University, which happens to be one of my alma maters, but we have an American Baptist pastor teaching on staff there. And so she invites me to come and spend the day teaching from the morning through about 9 o'clock at night on God Style. So I do it on campuses. I do it online, as I'll be doing in January. And I do it in local churches. You just have to get in touch with me via email or the telephone, and we will work out a date when it can work out for all of us to be together.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Anyone else? Guys are doing great. We're in the home stretch, so hang in there for just a little bit. Let me tell you a little bit about me, and really just love serving. So somebody grabbed a photo of me on a disaster relief team, and it's so funny. Frank had this in our original, on a slide presentation we had built. I love being behind the camera, taking pictures of all of you in the midst of ministry, in the midst of doing things within the life of your church. So there are many occasions where I have been the photographer, and if you follow us on Facebook or on Instagram, you will see lots of pictures, but I'm usually like the guy behind the camera, the guy behind the fence. Right? And so I just like getting a chance to share what you're all doing with our regional family. And much like the rest of the team has already shared, grateful for my family. They are the ones that let me be the crazy person that I get to be, running all over. So my wife is awesome. And so sometimes that's some pictures from a pilgrimage to Israel a couple of years ago. But my wife really does makes it possible. She lets me tromp around ABCOPAD to be present for so many things regionally. And I have a really complex family, a really culturally diverse family. When my wife and I were married, she knew that we might have some fertility issues. My wife has a huge heart. And so as a result, when we realized we weren't going to have kids, started adopting children. Many of my children are biracial, have special needs. We are a very diverse group. None of us have the same skin tone. At the end of the day, we choose to be family. It's just who we are. It's funny, I joke sometimes. My wife wanted to adopt way more. In her brain, she would have adopted the whole world. I wasn't in a position to financially support the entire world. So we have a really massive family, but just love them, and it really does so much inform who I am in terms of a person. So my family is really important to me. And I get a chance to do mission and communication. So it has been awesome. A long time ago, I came into the region as a local church pastor, working on some camping committees, working on some committees that involved the region. And I had some harebrained ideas back in like 99, 98, regarding things like starting an email distribution list. And our regional exec back then, Dr. Woodbury, was like, Mark, I kind of think email's a fad. I don't think it's going to last. But if you want to play with that, that's great. And I remember a year or two later, I think it was 2000, websites were just coming into being. And I again approached Dr. Woodbury, and I was like, I think the region should have a website. I think we should build a website. To which again, God bless Dr. Woodbury. He was such a good guy. He's like, I think that's a fad too, Mark. I don't think they're going to be around very long, but if you want to do that, and Frank was awesome as a area minister back in the day, and he was like, oh, I'll help you with that. And so the region has been great in letting this crazy pastoral leader explore new communication models, new ways of doing things. I may not be the one that invents that stuff, but oftentimes I like to think of myself as an early adopter and figuring out how we use those communication methods to help our region. And one of my passions, friends, is helping churches figure that out. And hopefully your church already has website, email distribution list, Facebook postings, all of that stuff. But if you don't, and believe it or not, we still have a lot of churches that don't, I love coming alongside and helping churches figure out how to do that. So invite me to come to a board meeting or to an opportunity to meet with a congregation and figure out how we get some of those things started. Having said that, friends, probably a couple of our biggest communication tools is our website, which is enormous, and our Facebook page, which we update practically daily, multiple times every day. So if you want to know what's happening in ABCOPAD, if you want to know where any of us are, 9 times out of 10, you just have to check Facebook and you can find us where we are. You don't have to wonder very long, like, I wonder if Mark is napping in his office this afternoon. Probably there's some pictures that may prove otherwise. Could be. And again, with our website, you can contact any one of the regional staff. The website has something like 200 and some odd web pages. We have a lot of information. It can be hard to find that, so you can always contact us by email. And we, some of us know it intimately, Denise, myself, and even Frank, Carol, and Jeff will help you find the link you're looking for when you need it. We've been doing more and more stuff with Facebook groups. And so one of the ways we take care of one another is through our Facebook prayer ministry. And believe it or not, I love the story. That's how a lot of the communication started. We started a prayer ministry that just went crazy. with people participating. So it really was prayer that fueled our communication growth. And so we have a prayer ministry where you can post prayer requests from your church or within your own family. We let people know of opportunities to serve through ABCOPAD Serves. We have a student ministries group. We have a women in ministries group. We have a vacation Bible school group that shares resources. So there are Facebook groups that help us all stay interconnected. And a fella, Bud Russell, you'll meet Pastor Bud. He and I try to keep track of all of that. There's a lot of moving parts to our communications network. And then if you're not on it already, we will love to get you on our constant contact list. Every Thursday, Pastor Bud, we try to send out a constant contact message with all of the latest news, all of the latest stuff added to our Facebook page, all of the latest stuff. So if you want to know what's happening regionally, get into our, you can contact me or Denise. We'll get you into our constant contact network, and you will be in the know as to all the latest stuff happening in our region. And it's a great way for you to share with us and with our regional family. So when you send us stuff to post, we get an opportunity to share that regionally to let other churches know what you're doing. And the other big passion for me is mission trips. I love helping congregations, and I get a chance to work with Denise and with Frank, Jeff and Carol as well. We make mission trips happen, and we are such strong advocates of hands-on mission experiences, right? And sometimes in the past, American Baptist churches equated mission with cracking your wallet, and we do need your mission support for sure. But mission is so much more than that, right, friends? Mission is so much more. And, in terms of spiritual formation and discipleship, it's when we're out there on the mission field that people's lives are transformed. Not just the people we go to serve, but the teams that are serving. So we are forever taking folks on mission trips. It's really what we do. And I think this past year, in the first 3 or maybe 4 months, we did something like, I don't know, Denise, was it 12 or 13 mission trips, both foreign and domestic, Puerto Rico, North Carolina, Haiti, Brazil, Dominican Republic. If your church has a passion to go serve someplace, our job is to make that happen. Many of you, the team, has heard me joke, it's not a top-down model. It's not like we decide to go somewhere and we expect all of our churches to follow us. Other way around. The churches tell us where their passions are, and then we figure out how to get you there, right? And fact of the matter is, Denise is like par excellence in figuring out how to get you there. I'm more of like a field agent. Denise really is the brains of the organization. So like I get to grab my go bag and run, and Denise like figures out all the hard stuff, right? So you definitely need to get to know Denise. And then, Frank and Jeff are supporters, and Carol just funds it, right? So it's a great team. We've done trips, again, disaster relief. When there's been a disaster, we have a team gearing up to go in February to the Bahamas. We have teams going to Puerto Rico in February. The picture of all the yellow shirts, the Center Baptist Association did a trip this past May to serve at one of our camps in West Virginia, and had 50 people from their association do a mission trip to West Virginia. And let's just stop and think just for a minute with me. A mission trip to Puerto Rico or the Bahamas, February in Pennsylvania and Delaware, February in the Caribbean. Let's just pause for a moment. 20 degrees, 85 degrees. It's just great getting a chance to get out of the icebox and to really be the hands and feet of Jesus and touch people's lives that are hurting and have been devastated and have lost hope. So it's just been super good. So I'm here to help in whatever ways I can regarding communications, mission, all of that. So it is like 10 of 9. What questions do you have? And I'm going to turn this over to Frank for the last couple of slides. So questions, thoughts, comments? And tell us how crazy we all are.
Again, we talked at the outset about how as you start a new ministry, you're drinking from a fire hose. You've probably felt that way this evening as well. It's a pretty broad and pretty expansive ministry effort that we seek to have with you, and are grateful for the chance to share even a little bit of it this evening. And as Mark said, the website is a great place to learn about kind of who we are in ministry. And our hope is tonight that there might be some particular area that has struck a chord with you. And we're sure hopeful that you'll reach out to us and give us a chance to be able to talk with you further about that. And we're just so thankful for your support.
Thank you.
And I mean, the reality is we can't do what we do together as a regional family without the faithful prayer and mission support of the churches that make up our regional family. So thank you for that. And this is, as we've said at the outset too, this is just the start of our conversation with you. And it's been about our ministries, but we're in partnership as well with a large number of region ministry associates. And the next time that we'll be together on December the 10th at 7, we'll highlight their ministries as well as the ministries of those auxiliary organizations that are also part of our family, because all of those as well are helpful to you as you seek to be the hands and feet of Jesus in your local congregations. So we're just grateful for the chance to partner with you. Are there any other questions that you might have, or are you just done? Are you tired?
I just wanted to say thank you. That was, it's nice to have the unity of people helping spread the mission of Jesus. And it's just, it's awesome. I just want to say thank you. This has been very valuable tonight. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Grateful to have the opportunity. And it's like Mark said, it's a big piece of geography that makes up ABCOPAD. And as we thought about it, this seemed to be the best use of time and your time and our mission dollars to be able to come together with you technologically. So great that it all worked tonight, and look forward to being together on the 10th as well.
Yep. And if you think of anything, I think when I emailed you all, you have the staff were all included in that. So you can send your questions, just click respond to all or to one of us individually if you think of something we didn't mention or the question comes up.
Awesome.
All right, man.
Well, Mark, since you were one of the, I was going to say, I'm going to point at you, buddy. And
I was going to get you. All right. I know. It's good. All right. Let's have a word of prayer. Lord, super grateful for these friends. Thank you, Father, for their call to ministry. Thank you, Father, for their call to one of our Pennsylvania and Delaware churches. And Father, each one of us on this call knows how challenging local church ministry is, especially in our cultural context. So, Father, I pray that you're going to help my friends to know they are not alone. Oh my goodness, that you walk alongside them, Father, that It is through the power of the Spirit that they do ministry, but also there is a team. There is a group of folks that stand ready to help, that are ready to jump in, that are ready to assist, that they are not alone. Father, thank you for the partnership. Thank you for their call. Be with them over the Thanksgiving season. May they have plenty of reasons to give thanks as they lead their congregations, spend time with their family, because Father, we give thanks for each one of them and the churches that they serve. So be with us now as we just get a good night's rest and prepare for what will come next in the next few weeks. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you, friends.
Thank you all, people, for being with us tonight.
God bless you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night. Thank you.